What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. We're going to do a deep dive today on what is called strategic leadership. What does that mean exactly? Is it actually, do I believe in it? That's a question I've asked myself many times. I understand the two words together, but I want to dive into, do sometimes people hide behind the word strategy? And then they throw the word leadership to make it feel good. Because when I put those two together, I don't know that I'm clear on it. I know what leadership is, no question about it. And I know what strategy is. But I think often we forget the whole idea of leadership is to go get results. It's to achieve things. So that's what I want to dive into today. What does it mean? How can you use it? Is it the best form of leadership? And I think we're going to discover some fun answers as we go along. The 5 levels, when you look up what strategic leadership is, it's position, permission, production, people development, and pinnacle. The 5 Ps. Now, I've also seen there's a model that's called perception, process, people, and projection. So, to make this really simple, here's what I would say. When I look at the pros of what is called strategic leadership, the first one is vision. That is what I would say every leader needs to have, whether you're a strategic leader or just a leader, whatever you want to call that. Every leader needs to have vision, no question about it. When I think of strategy, then they go to number 2, which is planning. What is your plan for what you're about to accomplish? Then number 3, do you have a system? One of the things that I would say I outsource often is systems. I don't typically know that I'm a systems-oriented person. My brain doesn't go A plus B plus C. It doesn't work that way. Mine will go A plus 7 equals, X. Like, none of it really makes sense. That's why often when I am hiring for operations, that's where I really rely on the strategy. So as a leader, I have the vision, but then I really am looking to outsource for the systems. Then ultimately for leadership, you're looking to encourage unity as a team. So if part of your philosophy is how do we bring the team together, 100%. And then lastly is clarity. That would be the 5th pro of this. Now, the one thing I would say about the cons of strategic leadership, there's a couple things that I've found will mess people up. The lack of flexibility, because this is our plan and we're just going to make sure that we follow the plan no matter what. That can affect growth. That can end up being very costly. You can lose momentum. So when I think of your leadership plan, and when we're talking about the specific term of strategic leadership, I like to say, yes, have your strategy, have your leadership principles, but know some of the pros and some of the cons. And the cons are, don't just continue following down one path because this was the plan. And no matter what, we're going to see it through. That's where I see people get in trouble with this particular term. So to make things really simple, because I gave you a lot to, earlier on that, where it's like, gosh, you mentioned like 14 different things. When I think of leadership, I think of very simply, what is your leadership philosophy? Start there. You need to be extremely clear on what that is. So for me, it's 2. It's not about me. That is my personal mantra or definition of what my leadership is it's not about me. The second one is result-only work environment. Now, again, I borrowed that from Daniel Pink. He wrote about it in the book Drive. Fantastic idea. Because I really don't care about if somebody works, 5 hours on a project or 50 hours. I hope they work 5. If they're getting the results, awesome. I don't feel like I need to manage you, and really make sure that you're working X amount of hours. So I don't believe in that philosophy. So when I look at leadership, it's what is your philosophy? What are your cultural values, right? We've talked about this many times. How do you behave? because again, as a leader, you want your people to know this is how I expect you to behave when you come in through come through the door. And then ultimately getting feedback and getting buy-in. So I think if I to look at that, it's really about four. So what is your philosophy? You obviously need to have your vision, knowing who you are, how you behave, and then ultimately making it about the team and what we're trying to accomplish. One of the reasons I'm really passionate about the word strategy and where it gets kind of screwed up, I think of Blockbuster and Netflix. One of them had a very clear strategy and they were not going to move no matter what. They and by the way, the market share they had was like 90%. I mean, Blockbuster was the absolute behemoth. But their strategy was so inflexible that they literally got passed up by this little company at the time called Netflix that had a very fluid strategy that would continue to ebb and flow with what was going on technology wise. And really, if you're to boil the whole thing down, they went from they don't need brick and mortar. We're not going to be emailing out the DVDs. We're going to get into the streaming game. And ever since, Netflix is still in business and continuing to grow and expand, and Blockbuster is no longer. So the strategy for Blockbuster, in my opinion, absolutely destroyed them. They were not willing to veer from the strategy that had worked for them for so many years. And one of the biggest challenges leaders have is it doesn't matter what you did yesterday, right? That doesn't mean anything. It's how do you show up today, excuse me, and how do you adjust for a world that's moving so fast? And Netflix was very willing to adapt and move. And you see them now. Now they're doing their own movie production and they've really grown it that way. And when their stock was having some challenges because of some internal strife and conflict, their strategy was to, okay, we're going to eliminate this particular executive that created some of these challenges, and we're going to continue to adapt. So I think the overall conversation that we always need to look in the mirror and say, am I being stubborn? And this is the way it's always worked, so I'm going to stay that way. Or in this world that changes so darn fast, am I willing to upgrade my strategy? Am I willing to completely say, you know what, this isn't working? Which, by the way, guys, I can speak very clearly. I'm doing it right now. We do so much content right now on YouTube. And I will tell you, if you look at the amount of time, energy, and money spent into this one thing, it's not adding up to where, okay, this makes sense per se. By the number of subscribers hasn't grown that much. The content's freaking amazing. And if you're listening on it right now, thank you for being a part of it. But the real thing that I'm going to do is step back and literally say, all right, let's start over and see what this looks like. I'm not saying anything's going to happen to the channel, but I'm saying if it's not growing and working the way that I planned for it to, then we need to see what the challenge is and how to relook at it. It's just being willing to change or upgrade your strategy because, look, things on paper don't always come through the way you want them to. It's not that you point fingers and you're wrong. The effort's certainly there. You're just not getting the results. And I told you earlier, I'm a results-only work environment. The results aren't adding up. So there's something that's amiss in the strategy, and we need to make an upgrade. So I'm speaking from personal experience, literally right now as I'm talking about this. So something that's always helped me when I do this step back or I do this, what's the problem? I lean back on the principles and the values of the company. So again, let's go win. Happy, healthy, wealthy. Those are the values. Is what I'm doing, let's just use YouTube. Does that generate happiness? And I have to say it does, both for myself doing the content, for those, even the select few group, right, that watch it. I get a ton of great feedback. Like, thank you for putting that out. It meant a lot. Awesome. Do I think it's healthy? 100%. Like, we're talking about, the health of your organization, for your business. We're talking about the health of your own personal. I mean, everything about it is focused on that. And ultimately, from the wealth side of things, it has led to business in other ways, not traditional monetization through YouTube, but through just other relationships that have been built. So when I go through that, it checks every box. Now, the other three values that I have, freedom, love, and abundance, the freedom one would be the one that I'm not sure right now, because although, does it impede on my freedom? Not necessarily, but I will tell you guys, at every point of my waking day, I'm thinking about some sort of video that I can do that's going to inspire people to live their best lives. Is that taken away from my personal freedom? Maybe not. Maybe it's just a part of my life at this point. But that would be the one that I'm like, yeah, maybe that one doesn't add up. In terms of love, man, I'll tell you, there's people out there that love to troll. I've heard some really nasty things about myself, my videos. So I guess you could challenge it there too, but I really don't care, honestly, because I know my intent is pure. And I would say the abundance side, I do believe that the YouTube channel is going to take off. It just hasn't found its niche or the algorithm. So YouTube, if you're listening, grab a hold. The content's freaking awesome. Let's grow this thing. But in the meantime, I'll be kind of checking in on those values to make sure, why am I doing this? Because I will tell you, often we end up doing things because we get in this habit, right? And so you're just continuing to do it and do it, which is great consistency wise. But if it's not working, be brave enough to say, all right, that didn't work out quite the way I wanted to. Let's take a look at this. And that's currently what we're doing. So I've talked about the word freedom, and I've told you guys how important it is. When I look at freedom, the definition I've given it is the ability to do whatever you choose to do, both financially and time-wise. I have not reached the level of financial freedom where it's like, yep, I'm just going to go hang out on the beach for the rest of my life and drink Mai Tais. We're not there yet. But I don't know that I would do that anyway, because I really enjoy working. That's the other part of this, is as much as I love my freedom, I choose to work. But it is something I continue to aspire to. And I know that by me helping other businesses double their revenue, triple their revenue, that's creating financial freedom for both them and myself. Now, the freedom side of things, where I will say that I love about Let's Go Win that I didn't have before, I pick and choose who I'm going to work with at this company. I don't have to work with anyone. In previous companies, those sometimes there was no other option. Like, this is what you signed up for. And at Let's Go Win, one of the things I committed to is I'm only going to work with people that I truly, both they inspire me and I'm inspiring them. And I will tell you, the most profitable, I guess, one-on-one client I've ever had, I will not name their names, they were not helping with that freedom side. In fact, they were completely draining my energy. And so the decision that I made is, this relationship isn't worth it. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just meant it's impinging on my personal freedom, and I get to choose not to do that anymore. So it was an interesting decision that was having to be made. And by the way, when I told her what I was going to do, she looked at me like, you're crazy. This is by far and away your most profitable one-on-one client. Why would you do that? And I said, because it's 100% not in alignment with the freedom that I've chosen with this company. So it is sometimes you're making these decisions based on, well, gosh, the money's there, but is it really, is it in line with your other values? And I guess financially, yes, it would have been in line with the freedom side, but for my personal side of freedom, absolutely not. One of the things I've had to learn while doing this particular company is how not to have my freedom or my presence be taken advantage of. So when you're doing these videos or this content, you could argue that, gosh, man, you're doing like a couple hours every week of content. Isn't that taken away from your freedom? You could argue that, but it has almost become just a part of my life. And here's the other thing. I get as much value out of doing this content as I think my consumer. And the reason I say that is because I'm sharing something out that I've learned, and that is giving me clarity on what it is because I learned it. Now I'm speaking it, and it's all in support of having, again, more freedom. So the idea initially was, okay, we're going to put out so much of this valuable content that I just see, this passive income side created on whether it be YouTube or, one of the social media channels. In reality, you're really beholden to an algorithm, right? If the algorithm likes you, it's like, great, boom, you take off. Or if you have a big network, like if I was still in the financial service world, I would have a much bigger network than when I stepped away and had the 2-year non-compete. So I guess my point is to have that audience, you either have to have a huge audience that knows you already, or the algorithm has to grab you and take a hold of you. So what I would say is it's outside of my control, but what I've learned to do is just film in a way that doesn't impede on my freedom. My wife is, if anybody knows Lisa, she's constantly taking pictures, taking videos anyway. So you may as well be giving value while you're doing it. And it's just become a part of our life. Often our expectations are what derail us. And the other thing that I will tell you that, and I'm going to say something I try to fight, but comparison is the thief of joy. When you compare your, in this case, your YouTube channel to someone else's, and let's say theirs is, exponentially bigger, which there's tons of channels bigger than mine, that can 100% take away from all your joy because you're going, well, what am I not doing? Whatever your dialogue is. The truth is, what you try to do is just celebrate for them because great job. They must have done something that caught on and people liked it. Awesome. I will also say when people have come to me, whether it's from one of the books or one of these podcasts or a blog that I wrote or a video that I've done, and they're like, I want to thank you. You literally, you changed my life. There is no greater reward for that. And so does the channel need to be bigger to accomplish that? Well, maybe not, actually. In all fairness, as long as my family is taken care of and we have freedom that way, who's to say? Yeah, it could always be bigger, but it's not. And it's out of my control at this point. It's not from a lack of effort. I mean, guys, I can't give anymore. I will tell you this. I had because of one of the pieces of content I did, I had a gentleman reach out, and he was, I won't say he was on the verge of doing something harmful to himself, but he had considered it. And because I had put something out, he had actually set up a meeting with me, and we got to talk through things. And he said, I cannot tell you how much this has meant for me. And I'm in a better place. I don't think there's a price tag that you can put on that, especially as you guys know my feeling towards mental health and taking care of yourself. So those rewards, that's probably why I'll never give up doing the YouTube channel, as much as I may change the strategy or change how much the content gets put out. That stuff you cannot put a price tag on. So it's one of these questions that you have to ask yourself. What is it worth? What if I hadn't taken that phone call and now that gentleman's no longer here? I mean, my God, that's a pretty impactful thing. So so this is one of those questions that as a business person, does it make sense if you're spending X amount of dollars and you're not getting the ROI? Most sharp, savvy business people would say no. However, I can't 100% quantify what that is because I've had people, book me for various things, speeches, or working with their company based on a piece of content they saw. So it is one of these funny things. And as I'm talking through it, guys, it's helping me as well. So I hope it's helping you too. The question I often get is, what does winning mean? And what, how does that, like, what is the one thing for winning? I only know of one thing, and that is not quitting. Like, if people ask me, why are you successful? It's literally one reason. I don't know how to quit. You can knock me down again and again and again, and maybe I'm just stubborn, or I don't know. I guess ever since I was young, I just had this persistence. What I would say is those people that can get back up, well, and eventually they're going to win. Or I guess they'll just keep getting bloodied nose again and again and again. But eventually, they do get up and they've accomplished it. But here's the other thing I would say to that: if I've done everything in my power, I can have zero regrets. So, for instance, I with the YouTube channel, I it's not a lack of effort. I've put everything into it. I just haven't won yet, per se. And when I say winning, defining that is challenging, right? What would a win mean? Would it mean that you've monetized the channel? Maybe. I will tell you, as much as I enjoy doing the podcast and doing content, there will be a day where, and I say it that way, there will be a day that my the responsibilities financially for my family are taken care of by just the podcast and the YouTube. That would be a win. That would be a major win. But here's why: I love doing it. So I'm getting fulfilled doing it, and I guess the financial reward for freedom would have then caught up to that. In the meantime, I'll do the other stuff that I love to do, helping business double, triple their revenue. I absolutely have found so much joy in doing that. So maybe I won't quit doing that at some point either, because I'll just keep loving doing that. So yeah, knowing what your win is, I guess, is important. And I would say, as long as you're having, for me, if I'm happy and I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, which all three of those things add up every single day and everything I'm doing, yeah, it's a win for me. The hardest part, I would say, of knowing if you're winning or not, or having the tools to gauge a metrics. In business, it's really easy, right? You can look at a profit and loss statement, and if the business is making money and you're doubling the revenue, guess what? You set an expectation, you went and hit it. I think the challenge that I have found specific inside of the social media game is to know what tools to use to gauge, and how many different voices are out there telling you to do it 100 different ways. I am not a social media person for the most part. I mean, it's interesting I say that, and yet I am actively on there often. But I don't, the analytics of it all, I don't quite understand it. And so I guess you know what I would say, anybody listening, if you have good feedback, if you're like, hey, your YouTube channel sucks because X, or it's awesome because Y, I want to hear both, by the way. And if you have a good contact that's like, hey, we know what that missing link is, I'm open ears. Again, I want the feedback. So I'm giving permission to everybody right now. Look, if there's a tool that's missing right now, and I just have the blind spot, I can't see it, do me this favor and send that over to me. You can hit me up directly, jm@letsgowin.com. DM me. Let me know, because again, I know the amount of time, energy, and effort is there. My team, myself, there's no lack of effort, but the results aren't where the expectation would be. So what is that missing tool? And I don't know that answer. I'm asking you genuinely as a question. So please do me this favor and let me know. And I'm giving you full permission. Take the gloves off, as brutal as you want. I open that up, and I'm telling you, I'm a big boy. I want this.